has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
Make sure you get the SportsGrid app on iOS or Android in the Play Store. It's free. You'll love it. You can watch the network on the app. You can listen to the network on the app. You can follow your favorite hosts like Carver High. And it's free, as I mentioned, and it's got in-game odds and everything else, stories, videos, highlights. You're going to love it. The SportsGrid app, it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Hey, did you hear that SportsGrid's streaming on X now? You heard me. We're streaming on X. All you have to do is go to SportsGrid-Live, and you can see us streaming 7 days a week, 365, 24 a day, styling, streaming on X. By the way, get your hands on the Ferrall Coast to Coast and Ferrall on the Bench podcasts on iTunes. They're available every day. The full 3-hour C2C, plus a Ferrall on the Bench shorty, which is just a look back at what happened and what's going on moving forward every day in sports on Ferrall on the Bench podcast. Like I said, they're available on iTunes. Programming note, we'll be here Monday. I'll be here. I was scheduled to be in Pittsburgh for a playoff game for the Steelers. That's not happening, so I'll be here Monday night, 3 to 6 with Carver High doing Ferrall Coast to Coast, coming off the Wildcard weekend and getting you ready for the Vikings and Rams, wherever it may be played. All right, we're in the final hour here of C2C on a Thursday, and we're going to dive back into these big games. Of course, the semi tonight, Notre Dame and Penn State in the Orange Bowl at Hard Rock in Miami Gardens.
It is time. The final four of the college football playoff. Game number 1 this evening. Irish and the Nittany Lions. Cannot wait for this down at Hard Rock in Miami Gardens. Let's start with Marcus Freeman, the head coach of the Irish. Of course, the Irish, they had to wait an extra day to play the Sugar Bowl last week against Georgia. Penn State played on New Year's Eve. This time of year, rest matters, and Penn State had 2 extra days of time to get ready. Marcus Freeman says, I don't care about any of that stuff. We're going to win anyway.
I think the coaches, we probably were a little bit behind to start just because of the travel in that aspect. But physically, our guys were good. And we're going to be ready to roll, but we got to utilize, as you just said, every minute we have from now until tomorrow night at 7:30. And so that's the mindset that we all have, is every minute we got to utilize. We didn't have 2 extra days, so let's utilize this time that we have physically and mentally to make sure we're prepared to go tomorrow night.
Well, there you go. And tomorrow night is now.
Look, I know that this was made a big deal out of last week. If it's a week, I don't care. If he had less than a week, I'd probably complain about it a little bit. But they played last Thursday. Today's Thursday. It's a regular week. 7 days. End of story. There's no excuses. No excuses. Play like a champion, as I said earlier. I don't want to hear about sick kids. I don't want to hear about 2 extra days of rest. Go out there and win the football game. That is what you need to do. Now, this press conference yesterday with the two of them was pretty interesting. Let me play the Franklin one first, and then we'll get into the other nonsense. Here's Franklin. Of course, they just faced Genty, who I know had 102 yards against Penn State. Yeah, that was on 57 carries the guy had in the game. So I'm glad he got his 100-yard game. Genty, they handed it off to him about 50 times. Franklin knows he also has to stop the Irish running game tonight.
Notre Dame does a phenomenal job with their running backs, what they're averaging per carry, how they play up front. But now you're also having to factor the quarterback into it, which creates another challenge, which creates more stress. And how do you do that? At the end of the day, our focus is still on trying to defend the run. Notre Dame does it in a little bit different way than what Boise State did last week. But it's still the whole philosophy of trying to make them one-dimensional as much as you possibly can, but also understanding that the quarterback's going to make plays. The running backs are going to make plays, and you're going to have to flush it and move on to the next play. And this is going to be a 4-quarter football game.
Oh,
listen,
4-quarter
I think
game.
This guy has had the easiest path to this game of any team in the college football playoff. They played SMU and Boise State. I am sorry, But now they're finally running into something tonight that is legitimate. I'm just not buying SMU and Boise State. And frankly, that's like people saying Indiana shouldn't have been there. Well, they lost to Notre Dame by 10. Okay, so they lost, and then Arizona State lost by 8. They did the two best jobs against these powers were Arizona State and Indiana. Make fun of them all you want. I thought SMU and Boise were worse, and it was a cakewalk for Penn State. Well, tonight, they run into something much more powerful in Notre Dame.
They certainly do. Remember these numbers. Of course, I always love James Franklin numbers. And top 5 opponents, and technically Notre Dame is a top 5 opponent. You get to this thing. Franklin, 5-12 against the spread in such situations. In fact, if you go back a little bit further, straight up, he's 1-14 versus top 5 teams, James Franklin. So as much as we talked about Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, they need to finally break through against a big opponent like they did in the Georgia game last week. Same can sometimes be said for Franklin and what he needs to finally do. Now, here's the other part of this press conference yesterday. So Marcus Freeman was very businesslike, I guess you could say, Scotty, is the way that you want to say it. Franklin was making jokes about how old he is and his hairline, and Marcus was kind of just giving him like this sly little laugh, I'm going to kick your ass tomorrow night. But then someone asked Franklin about Notre Dame not being in a conference or uniformity in college football. And here's where Franklin got on his soapbox and went after, I'd say win after, but said some things about the Irish.
I think it should be consistent across college football. I think, again, this is no knock at Coach or Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. I think everybody should play a conference championship game, or no one should play a conference championship game. I think everybody should play the same number of conference games.
Yeah, whatever. Who cares what he thinks? Listen, he doesn't seem to understand how much Gucci Notre Dame has in the world of college football. And they've had it since before Christ. And Penn State's never mattered. I mean, they've won a couple titles, but they've never mattered like Notre Dame has. And anybody that knows anything about anything knows that's true, too. Penn State don't matter when it comes to putting them up against Notre Dame. You can sit here all day and argue it until you're blue in the face. All you people that send your kids to school there in the East Coast. I mean, who doesn't have a kid at Penn State, right? I know 5 people right now that have kids at Penn State. Everybody goes to Penn State. Well, that's because they couldn't get into Notre Dame.
Yeah, I've seen all the belly aching. They're not in a conference. They don't have to split any money for making the playoff. They don't have to do this. Oh, well, too bad. They're still handing it out to them. I mean, NBC is still willing to pay them to just be on their network, right? So get over it, all right? Get over it. And then I saw another, played an easy schedule this year. They went to Texas A&M and played that. They went to the great 12th man, the mighty Kyle Field down there in College Station, and went on the road for that game. They didn't know that Florida State was going to go from 13-0 to 1-12, whatever the hell they were this year. They didn't know that Miami was going to back out of their game because they moved conferences, they scheduled things. Enough with the Notre Dame stuff with their schedule. They play a tough schedule every year.
There are more Notre Dame fans all over the world than there are Penn State fans by, fivefold. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop with everything. And you know what? Why don't you beat Ohio State once in Happy Valley, and then we'll take you seriously.
Yes. I'll give you the numbers when we come back. You know we're on the Irish, but I'll give you the numbers when we come back.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
There's a lot of bowl games. I love all of them. Even if you don't like bowl games, you got to love the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what it means for college football.
Who doesn't get excited for Pop-Tarts? But also, this is one of those where, Ben, I guess you could put your kids through college. Miami doesn't care about bowl games. They don't ever win those. Miami's a favorite. They usually go take the Iowa State Cyclones. Miami doesn't play any defense whatsoever, so you automatically just bang the total.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, so I guess we take a final look here at Notre Dame Penn State. I will not deny, I can make fun of Penn State all I want. It's not a big deal. I still respect them. I think they're a really good team. I think they are built like Notre Dame. I think they are very similar. I think they're both powerful defensively. I think they're both very effective running the football. I think Penn State throws the ball better than Notre Dame. I really do. I don't think that Aller's a great quarterback by any stretch, but I think he's, for me, better throwing the ball than Leonard. That it is what it is. I think that Penn State is very capable of beating Notre Dame tonight in the Orange Bowl. Listen, I've seen Penn State win Orange Bowls. I've seen Penn State win national championships. I've seen Notre Dame win national championships. So anything is possible. I put nothing past Penn State. They have every bit the chance to win this game tonight as Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame, but I have no idea why anyone would think that there's some kind of, better football team than Penn State. I think they're both on equal footing.
I think they're both on equal footing as well. I like Notre Dame. They just refuted the whole sickness story, too. Somebody, it's not as bad as they made it out. There's not going to be a problem for any of that tonight. I think that this is going to be kind of as advertised. I know a lot of people think this is going to be a rock fight, bit of a blue-collar game. I do, too. I think it's like 2017, 23-20. I think it's going to be under. I think it's going to be right in that area of a very tough physical football game. But here's where I'm leaning, and I know you would think Franklin's got the advantage because he's been doing this a little bit longer than Marcus Freeman. I think that Freeman has now shown in some big games he can coach in big games for the Irish. So I actually tip the scales with Marcus Freeman, Scotty. I think he'll do a better job than James Franklin tonight, and the Irish are going to win.
Fair enough. Look, I love 1.5. I'm not afraid of that. I really don't believe Notre Dame's winning the game by 1 point. I really don't. If they're going to win the game, they're going to win the game by 5, 6, 7. I don't believe they're winning by 1. I really don't. So we'll see. Vegas is always right on the number, dead on the number. So if I lose by a hook, then I go down by a hook. So what? I've lost 1 million bets by a hook. I've been burned 50 million times. I've had bad beats until I'm blue in the face.
Sadly, we all have. That's how it goes sometimes. So there you go. Lots of fun tonight, Orange Bowl. Tomorrow, we'll spend a lot of time on the other game, Jerry's World, Ohio State and Texas. And I saw this going on today. Apparently, the Dallas area has been hit with some kind of big snowstorm. And you know what happens when it snows down in Dallas. They can't handle it. They can't handle it. You remember the Steeler-Packers Super Bowl, right? Didn't they get hit with snow that week, and it was a total disaster? Nobody could get anywhere. Well, apparently that's happened here with down in Dallas right before the Cotton Bowl between Ohio State and Texas, which will be good. Minus 5.5 for Ohio State and 53.5. We will do, of course, a lot of this tomorrow on C2C leading up to the game. One final college note for you. Georgia quarterback Carson Beck, that we did the story last week. He's having that surgery on his elbow and he was going to enter the NFL draft. Well, it sounds like somebody has now decided to pony up a very large amount of money for him not to enter the NFL draft and instead enter the transfer portal. Miami, allegedly, the top destination. The Cane Day for Carson Beck, who's going to be coming off an elbow problem.
I think it'd be great if he played for the Canes, and they'll still lose 3 or 4 games like they always do. They suck. They butcher every season. They were undefeated, and they still screwed it up. They will never live down. Their bowl record over the last 15 years is the most embarrassing thing in all of sports.
Pathetic.
And losing 22-0 to Louisiana Tech, I mean, your own mother shouldn't cook you dinner.
You're still, I know you're not letting go of that bowl game against Louisiana Tech.
Never.
Listen to all these bowl games. They just can't win. How about winning in Syracuse? You would have been playing in the playoff instead.
I told you they'd lose there.
They probably would have lost there, but at least they would have been excited.
You mean
they would have
lose
lost
to Syracuse?
I know. I'm saying in the playoff, I think they probably would have lost.
They didn't
but they
deserve
still
to be in the playoff any more than anybody else
if they would have
did.
won.
They suck.
There you go. Let's get excited tonight. How about hockey?
Everybody loves hockey.
Everybody does love hockey. Caps beat the Canucks 2-1 in overtime last night. Nice effort by Colorado in Chicago, losing 3-1. I honestly, just no effort whatsoever. And they're playing a back-to-back tonight, I'll tell you in a moment. I think they'll lose tonight, too, after how they played. And Florida beat Utah 4-1. I know. Florida taking care of business in that. All right, let me give you the money line here. We're going to start to do a lot more NHL because it's January now. And now hockey season's here. The Capitals, plus 11.4 units this year. The best money line team in hockey. Canadians have been good, too. Why? Because the Canadians have won a bunch of games where they're plus 200, plus 175. So the Canadians have gotten some big wins. Golden Knights, Wild, and Jets, the worst teams. Look at this. The Islanders and the Rangers and the Sabres. All the New York teams on there and the Nashville Predators. Horrible. At minus 17.4 units for hockey bettors this year. Pathetic.
I mean, honestly, I don't know what to say at all about that. I mean, the Predators stink. I mean, the Penguins stink. I mean, all these teams stink. The Islanders, Rangers. The Devils don't stink.
No, the Devils don't stink. But they're Jersey. I can't put them in. They're New Jersey's team.
Jersey doesn't matter. That's not even a state, and neither is Canada.
The Blue Jackets have,
according to Donald Trump, it's the state.
The Blue Jackets have played the most overs this year. They're 28-12-1. The Ducks have played the most unders, 26-12-2. Penguins on the over column as well, 24-17-1 to the over.
And the Islanders score a lot of goals and never
win.
Yeah,
that's they give up a lot of goals too. So they do that as well. And you're going to smash tonight. We'll talk about it when we come back. Islanders are on the Strip tonight at the T-Mobile against Vegas. That's probably not going to go well for them either.
Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? 2 similar plays? Jackpot, cherry. I'm nimble for a big man.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Statement from Giants president John Mara. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented.
The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Ferrall Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, let's look at these games tonight on the ice, Carver High.
Yeah, we have a very full slate of hockey to get to this evening. Why don't we start in Ottawa, where the Sabres and the Senators get together tonight. Minus $1.60 for Ottawa, plus 132 for the Sabres, and a 5.5.
Yeah, I got to go Senators here in Ottawa. They're just flat out better than the Sabres. I'd bet Sens all night long.
The Bruins and the Lightning tonight in Tampa, right next to each other in the standings in the Atlantic. Tampa, of course, the favorite at home, minus $1.60, plus 132 for the Bruins, another 5.5.
I mean, the Bruins have been losing left and right. I think they've dropped 5 in a row somewhere in that neighborhood. Give me the Lightning at Amalie at home in the Gulf Coast.
The Devils and the Rangers getting together at the Garden tonight. Always fun when these two get together. Devils coming back off a long West Coast trip. Technically still on the road, but at least they're sleeping in their own beds. Minus 184 for the Devils tonight, plus $1.52 for the Rangers, and a 6.5.
I'm worried about taking the Devils because they've been on the road so long, and they still are. Another road game here, but every time they play the Rangers, they kick their ass. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Give me the Devils. It's not going to be easy because they've been on the road so long. That other side staring at me, screaming at me at $1.52, but the Rangers have stunk, and the Devils are more consistent. Give me the Devils. I'll take a shot with them.
Stars on an East Coast trip, of course. They won in overtime at the Garden in MSG the other night. Now they're in Philadelphia against the Flyers, minus 146 for the Stars, up to actually a minus $1.55 now. Flyers up to plus 135. 6.5 is the total in this game.
I can't bet against Dallas here, against this team. I think the Flyers stink.
It is hockey night at the PPG in Pittsburgh, part of this long homestand, which you're, of course, going to miss. 2 of the games are that they would have had this weekend. But tonight it's the Oilers in town against the Penguins. And the Oilers, big lumber on the road, minus 220, plus $1.80 for the Penguins and a 6.5.
Well, I would puck line Edmonton here to beat the Penguins easily tonight in Pittsburgh. And going back to that Philadelphia team. That fan the other night of theirs in that building at the Ferrall's Fargo, I think that guy should be in jail for what he did after that game, going down and sucker punching those two Leaf fans and throwing haymakers and punching them both multiple times in the mouth. That guy needs to be in jail. What a loser you are, dude. What an absolute piece of shack you are in life. No wonder no one loves you. Clearly no one loves you. That you are such a tool that you crawl down 30 rows to punch two dudes in the face because you don't like your hockey team that sucks ass losing. You're a tool loser. What a great future you have. Bet you're fun to be around during the holidays and even your own birthday when you punch everyone in the mouth that you know, you scumbag.
Yeah, those two guys were not expecting that down by the glass wearing those Maple Leafs jerseys.
What do the police do about it in Philly? Nothing. They do nothing about some guy assaulting people inside that arena. What do the Flyers do about it? And that loser coach of theirs, Tortorella. Nobody does anything. They just let fans beat the shack out of other people.
Well, they're not going to do anything, but the arena security should absolutely be involved with what's going on there. Seattle is in Columbus tonight against the Jackets. We told you, Jackets, lots of up, and away with the overs. Seattle minus 118 on the road, Jackets minus 102,
I like
6.5.
I like the Jackets. Seattle sucks.
Seattle does suck. The Leafs are in Carolina against the Hurricanes tonight. Canes minus 170, Leafs plus $1.40 and a 5.5.
Give me the upset. The Leafs in Raleigh.
Quack, quack, quack. The Ducks are in St. Louis. St. Louis minus 2 bills. Let me just tell you something. I'm never laying that money with the St. Louis Blues. Give me the Ducks tonight. Let's go. Ducks. Quack, quack, quack. And under the 5.5 while we're at it. Avalanche lost in Chicago last night. Now they're in Minnesota, and they're road favorites again. Give me the Wild tonight, Scott. Wild at home.
Wild tonight.
Let's go.
I got them earlier at plus $1.30.
And the Islanders are going to get their ass beat at the T-Mobile by Vegas. That's your late night game. Islanders are going to get their ass
I'll
beat.
puck line the Knights in Sin City to make it a beautiful day on Vegas, baby.
Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? 2 similar plays? Jackpot. Cherry. For a big man.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Statement from Giants president John Ferrall. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented.
The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Ferrall Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Calvin is our NFL insider, and you catch him every Thursday here on Coast to Coast. You can follow him on X at Kaplan NFL. He's been covering the league for almost 30 years. He's got a good friend that works for the Steelers, and I don't know if he's ever told his friend that I'm a season ticket holder of the Steelers and that I go to the games frequently. But I just wanted you to relay a message for me to him that I went to the Bengals game on Saturday night in sub-zero temperatures wearing a bank robbery ski mask on my face and, ski boots and 2 pairs of pants and ski jackets and heated gloves and everything else. And I just wanted to let him know it was the worst football game experience I've ever had in my life. It was the worst experience I've ever had in my life at an NFL Steeler game. I can guarantee you that. They are so awful now. I don't know what's happened. At Thanksgiving, they were 10-3. They haven't won a game since, and they get worse by the week. And they have about as much chance of winning in Baltimore Saturday as I do of taking over the world. I mean, honestly, they are so anemic. And that Art Smith, you heard what I said. Go jump off a bridge. He is worse than Matt Canada. You say he's not. You're crazy, too. Don't get me started on the Pittsburgh Steelers, bunch of losers, as they keep raising my ticket prices. What a hack Russell Wilson's become. Christ, I'd start Justin Fields coming out of his mother's womb before I'd start this guy in this game on Saturday. Russell Wilson's slower than molasses.
All right, since you went there, since you went to the Steelers, we were going to talk about them later. I'm going to address this. Their offense is horrific, okay? First of all, you've got one receiver in George Pickens. They make the trade for Mike Williams. They don't use him. That is bad coaching. They've got nothing out of the number 2 receiver spot. That's why they traded for Mike Williams. Use the guy, okay? Their offensive line is not the problem. Russell Wilson's been protected well enough.
He made a great catch in that game Saturday, Williams on the sideline. A great toe drag.
Yep. Now, he needs to be on the field more. And number 2, their offensive line, people bring up their offensive line. That's not the problem. They don't run the ball well. The run game design isn't very good. They need to be more of an inside zone gap scheme run game, okay? Everything is outside. These backs don't hit it up well. Arthur Smith has got to sort of relook at this offense. He's going to have to do it in the offseason. You can't really change now, but it's not working.
Fire him.
And their defense, Scott, here's another problem. Their defense is not even close to dominant anymore. They're struggling on the back end now. They're going to be healthier. Dante Jackson's back from that back injury, which caused him to miss a couple games. Injuries are not a problem right now for the Steelers. That has nothing to do with this game this week. We'll talk more about this game a little bit later at Baltimore, but you and I talked about this earlier in the week. Mike Tomlin has got to do a better job of coaching this football team. He's got to get more out of it. He's got to take responsibility. There's a reason why they have not won a playoff game since 2017. As good of a coach as he is, he's got to do a better job. Managing the offense is the big deal here.
Have you ever seen a team in your life lately? Name the last team you've seen with that many 3-and-outs in a football game as them.
It's terrible. Awful. They have an awful offense. And they should listen, George Pickens can't be your only option, okay? I mean, they had a formation, okay, last week. They went with 13 personnel, Calvin Austin, and 3 tight ends. The play got blown up. Well, what did you expect to happen? This is just not good football, and they should be way better. They've handed the Ravens this division, and there's a reason why they're now a 10-point underdog.
And they let Austin run back punts, and he fumbles the ball. All right, let's get into the latest disaster. They're just like the Steelers, even worse. They are worse, way worse than the Steelers. It's the Raiders. I mean, they let this guy Pierce have a press conference Monday, then they fire him the next day, and then they wait 2 more days and fire Telesco. Like, what a disastrous organization. The only thing they have going for them is that they have Tom Brady somehow tied to this organization because everyone else that's involved in it is a loser, including the owner.
Let me explain to you kind of the way this should have been done, and let me take you inside the way these decisions are done. The way it should work with a winning organization is you fire the head coach the next morning after the last game. You get that over with. You don't let that head coach have his press conference, okay? The next day, Mark Davis fires Antonio Pierce. The Raiders told their local reporters they were told that Telesco would be back. On Thursday, early afternoon, Telesco was let go. This is not the way that you handle your situation. That was just a really poor job by Mark Davis. The hope was that Tom Telesco would be able to hire his own general manager, his own head coach. He's not going to get that chance. So now you've got vacancies there. Matter of fact, Scott, we've got now 6 head coach openings and 3 general manager openings. And for a team like the Raiders who's going to have a high draft pick, they need a quarterback. This is not a year to need a quarterback, Scott. There are only going to be 2 quarterbacks, I'm told. They're going to go in the first round. So once again, the Raiders are looking for a quarterback. They need a head coach. They need a general manager. I'm told by multiple people with the Raiders, you can expect Tom Brady to be heavily involved in this situation going forward. Mark Davis will lean on him. I know he's a minority owner. He's got a small piece of it. But Tom Brady wants to be involved. Now, he's not going to pick anybody, but he's going to be involved as an advisor. I'm looking forward to see what happens here. If there's going to be any Patriot ties to this, could Mike Vrabel get involved? We'll have to see it going forward here.
Well, don't you think, Adam, with your expertise in this, is that Mark Davis is screwed. The only thing he hasn't done wrong in his career since his father gave him the reins is that he moved the team to Las Vegas and made $6 billion. It was the only thing he's ever done right in his life. Since then, he has been one disastrous decision after the next. Why don't you just let Tom Brady make the decision of who the GM is? And then that man would make the call on the coach. Mark Davis has to stop making decisions because he's a moron.
Yeah, he has butchered this thing. Just the way this was handled is so poor. Mark Davis has been in the league long enough to handle the situation better, and the Raider fans deserve better. You and I were out there. They've got a great atmosphere, great stadium, really good fans, but they got to rebuild this football team. This is a bad roster. Again, they don't have a quarterback. This is, if you rank the best jobs from 1 to 6, it's the Bears, the Jaguars, probably the Jets, although they don't have a quarterback for the future. Drake May, at least the Patriots have a quarterback, but that roster is terrible. The Saints don't have a future quarterback. Derek Carr's not the answer. Derek Carr's already said he's not taking a pay cut. The Raiders is the last thing. They just don't have enough.
How is the Jets job not better than the Jacksonville job? I mean,
Well,
it's New York, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, but they don't have it. Listen, the Jets, they have a defense, but they don't have a future quarterback.
They don't have a defense. Let's stop with that. They don't have a defense. That was the worst defense, the most overrated defense I've ever seen in my life. But it is New York, and they do have some talent. And I mean, my God, how do you – is Rex Ryan getting that job?
No. Rex Ryan's not getting that job. Look for the Kansas City connection.
He's the last guy that won there.
Yeah, but look, it's Rex Ryan's been out of the league a long time. No, that's not it. Look, they know Rex, Mike Tannenbaum, who's helping out the 33rd team. Obviously, they know each other. Look, there are a lot of good candidates from the defensive side of football. Rex has been out of it too long. It didn't end well for him, by the way, with the Bills. Don't forget about – you mentioned the Jets. Yes, back-to-back AFC Championship games. But don't forget about what happened with the Bills. It was not a good job by Rex to end his tenure with the Bills.
What does the Bills' job have to do with what he did in New York? He actually won in New York.
He did, but remember, he went over to Buffalo to end his career as a head coach, and it was a disaster. He doesn't understand offensive football. Yes, he's a bright defensive mind. What Rex should do, if he wants to get back in, try to be a defensive coordinator again and then rebuild his rep, because the whole thing was a mess. I'm not putting it all on him with the Jets. You are right. With Mark Sanchez, they got to the championship games.
All right, so wild card round, we got player injury reports, lineup updates. Let's start with this game Saturday in Houston with the Chargers and Texans real quick, and then we'll hit everything else coming back.
Yeah, this is big. Gus Edwards got a lot of reps. He's missed the last 2 weeks with an ankle injury. He's the Thunder with that Thunder Lightning backfield with J.K. Dobbins. They think he's got a real chance to play. Shaq Mason for the Texans, one of the starting guards, is out. And by the way, the Texans offensive line, that is the reason why they're going to lose this game, but we'll talk more about that right after the break.
We'll come right back with Adam Kaplan.
Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns. with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? Two similar plays. Jackpot. Cherry. I'm nimble for a big man.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day only on SportsGrid.
Statement from Giants president John Ferrall. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented.
The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Ferrall Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We'll do Bust the Cap in Yo Ass coming up, but we're in the middle of talking about the Texans game with the Chargers. And what about Quentin Johnston?
Yeah, this is big now. They fully expect him to play. He had an illness. But by the way, there are a lot of teams that have been affected by illness the last couple weeks. This is a big flu season, as everybody knows. But they expect Johnston to play. And by the way, I know you loved him for the draft. Tough rookie season. He's really done well this season, and he is starting to develop great chemistry with Justin Herbert. So they should begin. As I said before the break, Gus Edwards, they're very optimistic that he'll be able to play. The difference really in this game is the Texans' offensive line has been dreadful in pass protection. Yes, C.J. Stroud has taken a step back this season, but it's mostly because of pass protection.
All right, Steelers-Ravens, the big story is really Zay Flowers, right?
Yeah, and by the way, they knew all week he wouldn't play with a sprained knee. They'll go with Nelson Aguilar and Tylan Wallace. That's a big deal. I know they're dominated by their tight ends, and they're deep there, and they're great there. But Zay Flowers is a playmaker in the middle of the field, more inside the numbers. That's a big deal here. And by the way, the line is actually, even though with him being ruled out today, the line has not moved. In fact, it's either gone from 9.5 to 10. In fact, it went back to 10 within the last couple hours.
All right, so on Sunday, there's 3 games. And the 1 o'clock game is Buffalo and Denver, and there's literally no injuries to report on. But at the same time, Sean Payton's got the Broncos playing really good football. They're going in there. How do you think Bo Nix will do against the Bills, who are playoff ready, playoff primed? They've been to the title game several times, and they continue to fall short. A lot of expectations on the Buffalo Bills going into this wild card and the start of the playoffs. Yeah,
and they are so far ahead of schedule. The odds makers gave them a 5.5 win total for future numbers to start the season. Obviously, it's way above that. They certainly impressed me. I'm blown away by how good they've been. But it's their defense that's carrying it. Though Marvin Mims, his second-year receiver out of Oklahoma, is really coming on here. They've got enough to hang into this game. They're not going to win it, but they're healthy. Carver High's Bills are healthy. By the way, Josh Allen not even on the injury report, which is a good thing. They got to show me they can win a big game on the road. Remember, they got blown out early this season at Baltimore. But I give Sean Payton credit. I got to vote for 2 polls coming up. I got to look at him for Coach of the Year. Again, it's about exceeding expectations. The Bills, the Broncos have certainly done that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was in Pittsburgh, and I was Sunday. I stayed over, and I was there till Monday, and I watched that Bronco game against the Chiefs. I don't care who played. I enjoyed every minute of it. 38-0. Watching Kansas City lose to me was better than sex. All right, Packers and Eagles at 4:30 at the Link in Philadelphia. What do you think of this puppy?
And by the way, for the Packers, this is a big deal. This is the biggest injury week of the week. Christian Watson, their big play threat. Watson's done with the right torn ACL. This is a big deal because he does one thing, that he's their shot play guy downfield. They're not going to have him. He's not a big target guy. We know that. Dontavian Wicks, the second-year receiver out of UVA, he'll fill in for him. That's a big deal. Jair Alexander, the best corner, he's been out for 2 months anyway. He just had knee surgery. Carrington Valentine will fill in for him. That is a major deal, by the way, for the Packers. A.J. Brown, by the way. A.J. Brown did not practice today for the Eagles. That was planned. He's had a lingering issue with his left knee, but they backed off. They expect him to go. By the way, Jalen Hurts fine today, come back from the concussion. Eagles are pretty healthy. The Packers are kind of beat up at certain positions on defense. That does worry me, and that's why the Eagles are the clear favorite here for this game.
I mean, they are dangerous to begin with, and then you talk about the Packers having a second-year corner in for Alexander. They're going to chew and spit that kid out like he's not even there. Sunday night, Commanders and Buccaneers at Raymond James.
Love this game. This to me could be the game of the week. The Commanders were without 2 starters last week, and this is the big one. Barring a setback, Marshawn Lattimore will be back this week. He's taken all the starters reps with that hamstring issue. Scott, he's had problems going back to 2017 with when he was drafted, coming out of Ohio State, but right now he's good to go. For the Bucs, now they've had problems, pretty significant injury issues in their secondary. Jamel Dean, their best corner, with a knee problem. They expect him to be able to go, barring a setback. Antoine Winfield's been out a while with this knee problem. He took all the starters reps this week. They expect him to go. This, to me, Scott, is the game of the week. I love this game. I cannot wait for this game.
I agree. Do you think Lattimore can give Evans fits like he has his entire career?
I know. Isn't it funny? He goes from New Orleans, give him problems in the same division. Now he goes to Washington. Yes, I do. In fact, he's healthy. The fact that he's taken all the starters reps to me is a big deal. Washington is a live dog, folks. I'm telling you right now, they are a live dog.
I like that. All right, it's time for everyone's favorite segment on the network. It's Bust a Cap in Yo Ass with Adam Kaplan, giving you his spread picks for the games. There's 6 games this weekend. We don't know if they're moving the Minnesota Rams game. They should move it to Arizona with the smoke in the air and what's going on in Los Angeles. Quit effing around with this and just move the game already so that everyone can be settled in place, in their hotels, travel, everything else, and have a great game. They cannot ruin this game because of fires and smoke in Los Angeles. They must be stupid. Here we go. Saturday, Chargers and Texans in Houston. Chargers laying 3.
Yeah, but this number stayed steady. I like the Chargers to win this game on the road rather handily against a struggling Texans offense. The Chargers will take care of it.
10 at the bank in the Charm City against the Ravens.
Boy, that's a lot of points. As I said earlier, with Zay Flowers, this is going to be tough. They're a heavy 12 personnel team anyway. I am going to have to take the home team because the Steelers look absolutely terrible right now.
All right, Sunday, Denver at Buffalo at 1 o'clock. Bills laying 8.5.
Yeah, I like the Bills to take care of business. I don't see the Broncos rising to the occasion on the road in a tough spot.
The Eagles, it's moved to -5 against Green Bay.
Yeah, the Packers have too many injuries on defense, and the Watson injury, which I told you about, I like the Eagles to cover this number.
It sounds like you're taking Washington in the 3 Sunday night against Tampa.
Yeah, I like them to win the game outright, take the money line. I like Washington to win this game outright, correct.
And Monday night, Minnesota and the Rams, Minnesota laying 1.
I like the Vikings to bounce back after Sam Darnold got blitzed. I like them to bounce back in a big way and beat the Rams. By the way, the Rams are not a good home team, but they've lost a couple games this year and not played well.
He just told me in the break he was wearing Eagles underwear underneath his pants. Adam Kaplan.
Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? Two similar plays. Jackpot. Cherry. For a big man.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Statement from Giants president John Ferrall. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented.
The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This was a team that you should have dominated. You've now lost 4 straight. You're heading into the playoffs and you're searching for answers, not just in terms of your offensive line, but your quarterback now.
I just don't see this team peaking at the right time. It was almost like we were anointing Mike Tomlin as the best coach in the NFL 12 or 13 weeks in. Then once they got to the real competition and the attrition started to settle in, it's just not a good football team.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Ferrall Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Everybody loves leftovers, especially Carver High and Ferrall.
Yes, everybody does love leftovers. All right, a couple of things here, including a few that just came across the desk. Number one, I just watched McVay, who was just speaking, of course, with the Rams and the Vikings getting ready for Monday night. We know the situation in Los Angeles. He says, Scotty, that the Rams are operating with the, quote, full expectation that they're going to play at SoFi on Monday night. Now, look, if anybody's going to know, it's him. He's the head coach of the team. I'm sure if he thought that there was even an inclination that there's a good chance they're going to move that game, maybe he wouldn't say it at this point, but he seems to think they're going to play at SoFi on Monday night. So we shall see how that goes down the road.
Wear your masks.
Yeah, like I said, the Charger players, there was video of them today all wearing masks out at practice because of how bad the air quality is, and they are getting out of town. I think that I saw them say they're leaving tonight instead of tomorrow to leave a little bit earlier to get themselves to Houston for Saturday's game. Also, the Bears have officially interviewed Pete Carroll this afternoon.
Jesus.
Pete Carroll looking to get back in as
Come
well.
on, he's 73 years old, for Christ's sakes. What is happening here? I mean, honestly, are we not watching a guy even in the White House that can't even say his name? Like, at some point, do you just cut it off at 70? I mean, honestly, like, what in the world is happening? You might as well hire me to be the head coach. Pete Carroll, your day is so over. It's not even funny. If they hire him, that will be the most embarrassing hire I've seen in the NFL in my life. You're going to hire a 73-year-old man who just pretends like he's 53. You're not 53, old man, because you wear Skechers. Stop it. Stop it. Go play with your grandchildren. Go fishing. Go toboggan somewhere or something. What is happening here? You got to be kidding. Stop it. Bad enough that Belichick's coaching college football. It's bad enough.
And I usually like the funnier stories at the end and leftovers as well. Micah Parsons on his podcast said that the Cowboys will win the Super Bowl next year. He predicts a Super Bowl title for the Dallas Cowboys next year. I know you always love what these guys say on their podcast.
He is
especially
clearly the male of the male organ of the month club. Can we just stop with this guy already? You're a sex toy. Get out of my life. I'm sick of listening to this guy. You've done nothing except talk. Since you came into the NFL, all you do is talk.
Yes.
You have nothing. You don't have a leg to stand on. The Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl. Bro, have you taken a look in the mirror at how crappy your football team is? I mean, honestly.
He is not.
This is what? I mean, what is this, comedy hour? What is next? You're going to tell me the schmoozer is going to get the Jets job? How about the schmoozer gets the Jets job?
Hey, I know. Still going in there every once in a while on the weekend. Still see him going in there on the weekend. So anything's possible. Sony Open in Hawaii. The afternoon wave is out on the course. We have a 4-way tie for first right now. Your boy with the cap, Harry Hall, getting involved at 6 under. Adam Schenk at 6 under. Paul Peterson is at 6 under.
The Angry Inch.
And Eric Cole at 6 under, and he still has a hole to play.
Fishburne.
You got a lot of guys and a few
Simpson, Warren Spahn.
Bermuda Ben Griffin finished at 5 under. We still got some guys who are teeing off for first round leader. We'll see if we can get past those guys at 6 under later on today. And one other golf note for you. Puma files a notice of opposition against Tiger Woods and his Sunday Red logos that he has on all that awful clothing that he
Tuesday night, so, his team, the Jupiter Lynx, they're playing in the golf league Tuesday night against LA.
Wait.
Give me the bets for that one. Varela finished. Arizona man arrested after filming himself spraying bug killer pesticide on food inside the Walmart. You know you got something wrong with you when you go to pesticide everybody's food at the Walmart. You got to have something wrong with you, bro. Real estate magnate brothers accused of vast gang rape, sex trafficking scheme detained as more women come forward saying they're both rapists. GTD is next with Joe Ranieri. Check out my app. Just search Ferrall. It's badass. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 on Coast to Coast.
My own horn, and I know that I'm setting myself up for probably disappointment later tonight, but I hope you were with us last week on the Final Five because we almost swept the board. We had 2 out of 3 on the power play points with Reinhart and Matthews. We hit the goal scorer line A. We hit the side with Washington. We hit the total with the over in Toronto and Buffalo. So we had a really good Final Five last week, and I'm hoping that we can now ride that wave.
Only on SportsGrid.
50 points in a fourth quarter for the Atlanta Hawks. Like, what is going on? It's like circus numbers. What are we doing?
And we sound like 2 old heads complaining. It's a tough watch. It's a tough watch sometimes. I don't mind the shooting. I just know the numbers. Like, when you strictly look at it from the numbers in betting, it's getting really hard to bet.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Ferrall Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
The NBA will take center stage once football stops, and people will watch the NBA playoffs and all that. But the standings are whacked out in the Western Conference. Like Oklahoma City, Memphis, and the Houston Rockets are the best teams in the conference.
You want to talk about a team with overs and no defense? The Wizards are your team. It's unbelievable. They can't make a total high enough. It's nuts.
Sports Rage tonight. Weeknights 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Only on SportsGrid.